The Airbus A320 shuddered gently as it pushed through a patch of thin clouds, sunlight scattering across its wings like liquid silver. Inside the cabin, life carried on as usual. A flight attendant wheeled a cart down the aisle, her practiced smile steady as she offered small bags of pretzels and plastic cups filled with ginger ale. A baby cried somewhere near the back, a high-pitched wail softened by the constant drone of engines. Laptops glowed, phones buzzed, and conversations rose and fell like tiny waves across the sea of rose. For most, it was just another morning. Flight. But for Amelia Falcon, seated by the window in 13F, every mile eastward felt heavier than the one before. She pressed her forehead against the glass, her reflection faint against the vast stretch of sky. At 33, Amelia was used to solitude. It had been her companion since the day her brother vanished swallowed whole by a military world that gave her nothing but silence in return. She tried to distract herself with music, earbuds tucked neatly into place, but her thoughts ran louder than the beat. Her ticket had been booked last minute. Washington, D.C. wasn't exactly where she wanted to be, but the conference there, the Aviation Technology Summit, was important for her job. As an aerospace engineer, she often brushed shoulders with names and institutions that reminded her of her brother. Today was no different. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a notebook, worn from years of scribbles, diagrams, and clipped articles. Inside, she had tucked away anything that mentioned him. Official reports, speculative blogs, even declassified snippets from congressional hearings. None of them answered the one question that burned every night. What really happened to Lieutenant Daniel Falcon? She sighed, flipping past the yellowed clippings. The ache never dulled, but the world never stopped. Planes still took off. Clouds still drifted. Life still demanded her attention. Then it happened. The captain's voice crackled overhead, routine and calm. Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently cruising at 28,000 feet, expected. Arrival on time in Washington. Weather ahead looks clear. Relax and enjoy your flight. There was nothing unusual about the announcement, except for the words that followed. To confirm, our passenger manifest is complete. If there are any concerns, please notify the crew. That includes seat 13F Falcon. The sound of her last name, spoken aloud over open air, froze her in place. It was said casually, as if the captain was simply confirming a detail. But the word carried farther than the cabin. Through frequencies and channels, it slipped into the invisible network of the sky's air traffic control, defense monitors, and unintentionally, the ears of two F-22 Raptor pilots slicing through the upper atmosphere 40 miles away. Inside the cockpit of one of those Raptors, Captain Thomas Daniels sat upright. His headset buzzed with static before the syllables cut through clear as day. Falcon. He blinked, heartbeat quickening. Did you hear that? His wingman, Lieutenant Perez, glanced over. Heard what? Daniels' voice dropped. The manifest, they said Falcon. Perez frowned, running the name through memory. No. It can't be. Not that Falcon. Daniels didn't answer immediately. The call sign wasn't ordinary. Among their squadron, Falcon was a ghost, a story told in whispers. A pilot who disappeared under circumstances so secret that even those wearing the same uniform weren't given answers. Some said Falcon had defected. Others believed he'd died protecting something classified. All Daniels knew was that Falcon's reputation had been untouchable. A prodigy in the cockpit, a legend gone too soon. And now, at 28,000 feet, the name had returned. Daniels tightened his grip on the control stick, eyes narrowing at the distant silhouette of the passenger jet. We need to get closer. Perez hesitated. We're not ordered to intercept. Not yet, Daniels muttered. But the instinct gnawed at him. He'd been trained to follow orders, But he was also a pilot, and pilots knew when something in the sky didn't fit. He eased the Raptor into a shallow turn, its engines roaring like thunder muffled by altitude. The aircraft angled closer, toward the commercial flight. Perez followed reluctantly, his nerves evident even through the radio. "Captain, if this is just coincidence—" "It's not," Daniels interrupted. "Names don't echo like that without reason." Back. In seat 13F, Emilia shifted, unaware of the chain reaction her surname had triggered. She tucked her notebook away, rubbing her temples. The crying baby had quieted. A couple across the aisle was laughing softly at something on a phone screen. Everything looked normal, until she glanced out the window. At first, it was just a shimmer against the horizon. Then it sharpened, an angular shape cutting through the sky, sunlight glinting off metallic skin. Another followed, slipping into formation like a shadow. Amelia's breath caught. "Fighter jets," someone whispered behind her. Phones rose quickly, passengers craning to see. The atmosphere shifted from casual to anxious in seconds. Even the flight attendants exchanged uneasy glances. Amelia pressed her palm to the window as the Raptors drew nearer. The sleek, predatory shapes moved with precision, their presence impossible to ignore. And deep inside her chest, something stirred, a memory. Her brother, in uniform, crouched beside her when she was 12. He'd ruffled her hair before leaving for deployment, smiling with that steady calm he always carried. No matter what happens, remember, Falcons don't fall. We fly higher. That was the last thing he ever told her. Now, years later, two Raptors were staring her down at 28,000 feet. The captain's voice broke through the cabin again, this time firmer. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We are currently being accompanied by United States Air Force aircraft as a precautionary measure. There is no danger." But fear had already spread. Questions buzzed down the rows. Why are they here? Are we in trouble? Is it terrorism? Amelia stayed silent, her pulse hammering. She didn't know why they were here either, but her instincts screamed it had something to do with her name. Far above, Daniels adjusted his headset, voice low as he radioed ground control. "Requesting clarification on passenger Falcon, seat 13F, repeat. Falcon." The line crackled. "Stand by." Then nothing. Silence stretched, heavy and deliberate. Perez's voice came through, uneasy. "Why isn't command answering?" Daniel's eyes locked on the jet. "Because they know exactly what Falcon means." Inside the cabin, Amelia felt her phone buzz against her leg. She frowned. No service, no Wi-Fi. She pulled it from her pocket anyway. On the screen, a message appeared from an unknown number. "We need to talk about your brother." Falcon command. Her hands shook. It was impossible. Messages couldn't appear mid-air, cut off from towers. Yet there it was, glowing back at her. Amelia's world tilted, her grief colliding with confusion. Her brother wasn't just a memory lost to bureaucracy. His name was still alive, and now so was hers. And high above, two F-22 Raptors shadowed her flight, waiting for orders that might finally unravel the secret buried since the day Lieutenant Falcon disappeared. Captain Thomas Daniels steadied his breathing, eyes fixed on the commercial airliner cruising miles ahead. The distant white fuselage glimmered against the endless blue, oblivious to the storm its presence had just stirred. A storm he could feel, in his bones. He leaned forward in his cockpit, the glass canopy reflecting the faint lines of his face. 34 years old, 10 of them in uniform, Daniels wasn't the kind of man to chase phantoms. Yet when the word Falcon spilled through the frequencies, it wasn't just sound. It was history one the Air Force had buried, but not erased. Beside him, Lieutenant Miguel Perez tightened formation, his F-22 slicing through the sky with the grace of a predator. Perez was younger, still carrying that restless energy of someone trying to prove himself. But now his voice cracked with unease. "Captain, are we really doing this? Our orders were routine patrol. You're pulling us off track." Daniel's jaw clenched. "We're not off track. That name wasn't coincidence. You know what it means." Perez hesitated. He did know. Every pilot in their circle did. The story of Falcon was legend a pilot whose skills were unmatched, whose courage had made him a benchmark, and whose disappearance during a classified mission turned him into a myth. Falcon wasn't just a name. It was a shadow that still loomed over the Air Force. "But sir," Perez pressed, "what if it's just someone else? A random passenger named Falcon." "Happens all the time." Daniel's gaze didn't waver from the jet ahead. "Then why the silence from command?" Perez swallowed. He had no answer. The line had gone dead the moment Daniels requested confirmation on passenger 13F. "Stand by," they'd said. And then nothing. Not static, not redirection. Silence. That was worse than denial. Daniels adjusted the throttle, easing his Raptor a little closer to the jet. The airliner loomed larger, steady and unaware. Through his visor, he could almost see faces in the windows, ordinary people, sipping sodas, flipping through magazines, dreaming of their destinations. None of them could have guessed that their morning flight was suddenly the focus of military attention. Perez cursed under his breath. "If command finds out we broke formation..." "They'll find out," Daniels cut him off. "But right. Now I want to see for myself." The Raptors closed in, their sleek bodies shimmering like blades against the sun. Inside the airliner, passengers stirred with nervous chatter. Phones lifted toward the windows, recording the surreal sight of two fighter jets pacing alongside them. Some whispered about hijackings, others muttered about war. Flight attendants moved quickly down the aisle, plastering on smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Amelia Falcon pressed her face to the glass, her breath fogging the pain. She'd seen fighters before. Her brother used to take her to air shows, the roar of engines thrilling her younger self. But this was different. These Raptors weren't putting on a show. They were watching, guarding, or hunting. Her heart thumped, memories clawing their way out of the dark. She was 15 when the knock came at the door. Two officers in pressed uniforms stood on her porch, hats tucked under their arms, their faces stiff with formality. "We regret to inform you." She had stopped listening after that. They said her brother had died during a training mission. No remains recovered, no details disclosed. Only a folded flag and a box of medals that felt more like consolation than truth. Even as a teenager, Amelia knew they weren't telling her everything. And now, at 28,000 feet, the Raptors outside her window seemed to whisper the same thing her gut had told her all those years ago. The story isn't over. A murmur rippled down the aisle as the captain's voice filled the cabin again. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We are experiencing an escort procedure by the United States Air Force. This is a routine precaution, nothing to be alarmed about." His words were smooth, practiced, but Amelia wasn't convinced. Her phone buzzed again in her lap. She glanced down, heart skipping. Another message from the same untraceable number. "Do not panic. Do not speak. You'll have answers soon." She stared at it, her fingers trembling. How was it possible? With no Wi-Fi, no signal, the message still appeared as if pulled straight from the ether. She tried to type a reply, but the keypad froze. Whoever was sending these texts didn't want her asking questions. They only wanted her listening. Across the sky, Daniel's headset crackled. Finally, command's voice cut through, low and clipped. "Maintain escort. Do not engage. Passenger Falcon holds priority status." Daniel's brows knitted. priority status. He'd heard the term only a handful of times in his career, and always in connection to missions that never appeared on paper. Perez exhaled sharply. Priority for a civilian? Daniels didn't respond right away. He studied the airliner, his instincts flaring. Whoever Amelia Falcon was, she wasn't ordinary. And if she truly was connected to the Falcon he remembered, then she was more than just a civilian. She was a key to something Command wanted to keep buried. Sir? Perez pressed. Daniel's voice hardened. We stay on her until told otherwise. Perez grumbled, but obeyed. The two Raptors settled into a protective formation, wings slicing through the thin air like watchful guardians. Inside, Amelia noticed the subtle shift. The fighters weren't menacing anymore. They weren't posturing or flexing their might. They were shielding her. Her stomach tightened. Why would the Air Force protect her? Unless she squeezed. Her eyes shut. No, it couldn't be. Her brother was gone. She had cried herself empty, had buried him in memory 100 times over. And yet, a sliver of hope twisted inside her, dangerous and intoxicating. What if the story they told her wasn't true? She reopened her eyes, glancing around the cabin. Passengers were whispering theories. Must be a bomb threat. Maybe a foreign national on board. Could be a drill. No one suspected. The truth, no one looked at her. She was still invisible, a woman in a window seat with earbuds in and a heart on fire. Another vibration against her palm. She checked her phone again. Your brother isn't dead. He went dark. You're part of this now. Amelia's vision blurred. She covered her mouth with her hand, stifling the cry that wanted to escape. Daniels, watching from above, caught sight of her through the glass. A small figure pressed against the window, eyes wide with something between fear and recognition. Their gazes almost met across the gulf of altitude and glass. He didn't know who she was yet. But he knew one thing. The name Falcon wasn't finished. And neither was the mission. The Airbus rocked gently, caught in a ripple of turbulence. Passengers murmured nervously, their eyes darting from the overhead bins to the oval windows where the Raptors glided like sentinels. To some, it was thrilling and unscheduled air show, in the middle of their morning commute. To others, it was unsettling. Fighter jets didn't simply appear alongside a commercial airliner unless something serious was happening. Amelia Falcon felt every vibration of the cabin in her bones. Her hand gripped the armrest so tightly that her knuckles whitened, but her gaze never left the Raptors outside. They moved with surgical precision, one slightly above, one slightly below, as if bracketing the jet in a protective cage. Passengers. Around her whispered in tones meant to soothe themselves. It's just routine. Maybe some VIP on board. Could be training. But Amelia knew better. Her phone buzzed again, though she hadn't dared look since the last message. Your brother isn't dead. He went dark. The words still burned in her head. She thought of him now, Daniel Falcon, the brother who had raised her after their father's heart attack, the man who had promised her at 17 that the Air Force would take him but never take his soul. She remembered the smell of jet fuel on his uniform, the way his eyes lit up whenever he talked about flying. And she remembered the day the officers came to their door. Training accident, they said. No remains recovered. Her mother collapsed in the kitchen. Amelia, barely old enough to vote, had stood frozen on the porch, her heart rebelling against the words. It didn't add up. Not for Daniel. He wasn't reckless, wasn't the type to vanish without explanation. The military gave them nothing but folded flags and silence. And now, years later, here she was seat 13F, 33,000 feet. In the air, staring at fighter jets that didn't belong to her flight path. The air around her buzzed with tension. The man beside her, balding and businesslike, leaned toward the window with a shaky laugh. Well, this is one for the books. Huh? Never thought I'd be escorted by the Air Force. His chuckle died quickly when Amelia didn't respond. She couldn't. Her throat was tight. Instead, she finally picked up her phone again, shielding the screen from curious eyes. A new message glowed. Do not fear the raptors. They are here. For you. Her chest constricted. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the cabin was the worst possible stage. Everyone was already watching the jets. If she made herself the center of attention, she'd never escape the questions. She slipped the phone into her lap and whispered under her breath, "Why me? Why now?" From the cockpit of the lead Raptor, Captain Daniels studied the jet's windows through his HUD. Hundreds of tiny rectangles reflected sunlight, but only one drew his focus. Row 13, starboard side. He thought he saw a figure leaning forward, a face pressed against the glass. Perez's voice broke into his headset. "Sir, command just reconfirmed. Passenger Falcon has priority clearance." Daniels frowned. Clearance for what? They didn't say. He hated this part of the job. The secrets, the half-truths, the feeling that even as a captain, he was a pawn on someone else's board. But he couldn't shake the legend of Falcon, the pilot whose name had inspired him when he was still a cadet. He remembered sneaking into the simulator room late at night, pulling up classified footage of Falcon's test flights. The maneuvers defied physics rolls and dives no one else could match. Daniels had dreamed of meeting him, of learning from him. Then Falcon disappeared, erased from the records, spoken of only in whispers. And now, years later, the name had resurfaced in the manifest of a civilian airliner. Daniels tapped his throttle lightly, adjusting position. Keep formation. Eyes on 13F. Perez hesitated. "What do you think she is? Family?" Daniels' voice lowered. "If she's connected, she might know why Falcon vanished." Back inside the cabin, tension thickened. The pilot's earlier reassurance hadn't landed. A mother held her child. Tighter. A young man scrolled news apps, searching for breaking headlines that might explain the escort. Cameras flashed as passengers tried to record the Raptors, their screens glowing in the dimmed light. Amelia ignored all of it. Her focus tunneled onto her phone as she dared to type a single word into the frozen keypad. Who? For a moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, the screen flickered and letters appeared one by one. Your brother. Her breath hitched. She typed again, frantic. Alive? The reply came swiftly. Yes, but not as you remember. Amelia's vision blurred with tears. Her brother, her protector, her hero was alive? Or was this some cruel trick? She didn't know which possibility terrified her more. The balding businessman beside her glanced at her pale face. You okay, miss? She forced a smile, tucking the phone under her sweater. Just motion sickness. He nodded sympathetically, turning back to the window. She exhaled slowly, praying he couldn't hear the pounding of her heart. Meanwhile, at the front of the airliner, the captain sat stiff in his chair. His headset buzzed with instructions from ATC, but the tone was different now, curt, controlled. Maintain heading. Military escort confirmed. Do not deviate. Repeat, do not deviate. He exchanged a look with his co-pilot. What the hell is going on? The co-pilot shrugged uneasily. We've had escorts before, but not like this. Not this close. Not this quiet, the co-pilot added. Back in the Raptors, Daniels received his final confirmation. Hold position. Protect the asset at all costs. Asset, not passenger. Not civilian. Asset. He tightened his grip on the stick, uneasy. What kind of passenger was Amelia Falcon? From her window, Amelia could swear one of the Raptors tilted its wing slightly, like a silent acknowledgement. She blinked rapidly, uncertain if she imagined it. But in that fleeting moment, she felt less alone. The raptors weren't hunting her. They were guarding her. And that realization was both comforting and terrifying. She looked back down at her phone, half dreading, half praying for another message. It came almost instantly. When you land, remain. Seated, they will come for you. Her stomach dropped. The flight had hours left before arrival. But suddenly, every tick of the clock felt like a countdown not to Washington, but to the truth she'd been chasing for over a decade. She clenched her fists, steadying herself. She was no longer just a passenger in 13F. She was a Falcon. And the sky had finally remembered. The Airbus glided eastward, slicing through the cold morning air. Passengers had grown quieter now, unease spreading like smoke through the cabin. Conversations were whispers, hands clenched armrests, and eyes darted toward the windows where the Raptors still prowled in formation. The novelty of seeing fighter jets had worn off. In its place lingered a sharp, collective fear. Amelia Falcon sat motionless in 13F, her reflection a pale ghost in the window's curve. Outside, the sleek nose of an F-22 hovered near enough for her to see the faint glint of a pilot's helmet beneath the canopy. She felt as though he was staring directly at her, and maybe, somehow, he was. The phone in her lap pulsed again. Another message appeared, just as impossible as the last. They know who you are. Don't speak to anyone. Not yet. Her chest tightened. She glanced around. Nobody seemed to notice her reaction. A flight attendant passed nearby, smiling tightly. As she handed juice to a child, Amelia closed her eyes briefly. Whoever was sending these texts was watching. Watching from where? Across the sky, Captain Daniels toggled his mic. His voice was even, though inside his thoughts raced. Ground, this is Viper 1. Passenger Falcon, can we confirm her identity? Static answered him at first, then finally a clipped voice. Negative. No further details authorized. Maintain escort. Daniels scowled. With respect, sir, we're burning fuel. If this is just maintain escort, Captain, those are your orders. The line went dead again. Perez's voice filled the silence. This is insane. Why would they stonewall us? If she's priority, tell us why. Daniels exhaled through his nose. Because the Y is classified above our pay grade. Perez shook his head inside his helmet, though Daniels couldn't see. And we're just supposed to play babysitters? Daniels. Jaw said, until told otherwise. He didn't add what he was really thinking. Babysitting wasn't the right word. The way Command phrased it, protect the asset, suggested something more, something dangerous. Inside the Airbus, Amelia finally gathered the courage to type back, fingers trembling over the unresponsive keypad. She forced the word out. Brother? The reply was immediate. Alive, but compromised. Her breath hitched. She wanted to scream, to demand clarity, but she knew no one else on this plane could hear this conversation. She was alone in it. Alone, except for the Raptor's flying shotgun beside her. The businessman in the aisle seat leaned toward her again, oblivious. Any idea what's going on? Amelia startled slightly, then forced a weak smile. No, just as confused as you. Must be some bigwig on board, he speculated. Maybe a politician in disguise. That'd explain the jets. She nodded faintly, hoping he'd lose interest. But inside, her stomach twisted. It's me, she wanted to say. They're here because of me. Her phone buzzed again. Do not trust anyone. Only listen when they say Falcon Command. She swallowed hard. Whoever this was, they knew too much. And if she was the reason two F-22s shadowed the flight, then every second brought her closer to a truth she wasn't sure she could handle. Daniels, meanwhile, stared at the airliner's fuselage through his HUD. "I want eyes on 13F, he said suddenly. Perez snorted. "Sir, unless you've got X-ray vision. Not literally, but she's there. I saw movement near the starboard windows." Perez was quiet for a moment. "You really think she's connected to him?" Daniels didn't answer right away. He thought of the legends, the old simulator footage, the stories whispered in flight school about Falcon's impossible maneuvers. How he pushed aircraft beyond limits. How he vanished into classified silence. Daniels had admired him like a ghost mentor. And if this passenger, this woman, was his blood? Daniels finally said, "Yes, I think she is." The radio crackled. Unexpectedly, Viper 1, Viper 2 maintained position. Passenger Falcon must arrive without incident. Repeat, no incident. No incident, Daniels echoed, though the words tasted bitter. Perez broke the silence. "Sir, what if incident finds us?" Daniels didn't reply. Back inside the Airbus, passengers began recording videos, holding their phones against the windows, capturing the Raptors cruising alongside. Some posted live to social media, though the onboard Wi-Fi flickered under strain. Amelia could almost feel the ripple this was creating below. Families texting loved ones. "We're being escorted by fighter jets." But Amelia knew the world outside had nothing to do with this. This was personal. She thought again of Daniel, her brother, standing tall in his flight suit. His grin before leaving for his final mission. "I'll be back," he'd said, squeezing her shoulder. "Falcons always come back." He hadn't, not to her. And now a stranger was telling her he was alive. Compromised. Her chest ached. Another message lit her phone. "Upon landing, remain in your seat. Agents will board before anyone disembarks. Do not resist." The words chilled her. She pictured dark suits, earpieces, hands gripping her arms as they led her away, while other passengers gawked. Was she being rescued or taken? She typed with shaking hands. "Why me?" The answer came like a hammer. "Because you are the only bloodline left. And Falcon's mission isn't over." Her pulse pounded in her ears. She didn't notice the tears brimming until they slid down her cheeks. The businessman glanced at her again, frowning. "You sure you're okay?" She wiped quickly, nodding. "Yeah, just turbulence." But turbulence wasn't the problem. The problem was everything her life had been built on, grief, closure, finality, was unraveling mid-air. Daniels watched from above as the Airbus continued its steady path. He thought of the passengers inside, unaware they were ferrying someone so valuable that command had gone silent, diverting 2 of their Raptors to guard her. He thought of the woman in row 13F, who might carry answers to questions he'd asked since cadet school. Perez's voice was quiet now. "Sir, do you think she knows?" Daniels hesitated, eyes on the jet. "Not yet. But she's about to." The Airbus pressed eastward, engines humming, carrying with it a truth years in the making. And in seat 13F, Amelia Falcon sat trembling, her name no longer just a name, but a key unlocking doors she never knew existed. Somewhere below, Washington awaited. And with it, the reckoning of Falcon's legacy. The descent began with a quiet chime. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've started our initial approach into Washington Dulles. Please return your seats to the upright position." The flight attendant's practiced voice wavered, betraying the tension that had consumed the cabin. Passengers fumbled to stow laptops, fasten belts, and cast nervous glances at the windows where the F-22 still hovered in flawless formation. Amelia Falcon's heart pounded in her chest. Her phone had gone silent for the last 20 minutes. The screen black on her lap. She wanted another message. She dreaded another message. Every minute brought her closer to the ground, closer to whatever awaited her. The businessman beside her whispered, "They're still there." following us. All the way down. She managed a nod, though her throat was too tight for words. The Airbus tilted slightly, banking over green fields and clusters of suburbs. The Raptors mirrored the motion seamlessly, like hawks guarding prey. Gasps spread through the cabin. As more passengers noticed, a child pressed his face to the glass, wide-eyed. "Mom, they're racing us." The mother shushed him, her own face pale. The captain's voice came over the intercom, strained but steady. "Folks, we've been instructed to follow an escort procedure into Dulles. Please remain seated after landing. I repeat, remain seated until directed." A ripple of fear moved through the cabin. No one had ever heard instructions like that before. Amelia gripped the armrest so tightly her knuckles ached. She tried to steady her breathing. The last text burned in her mind. Remain in your seat. Agents will board before anyone disembarks. She closed her eyes and whispered under her breath, "Daniel, what did you leave me with?" "Outside, Captain." Daniel's voice crackled over his combs. "Tower, Viper 1. Civilian jet is commencing approach. Escorts in place." "Copy that, Viper 1. Maintain visual until touchdown." "Ground team is standing by," Perez muttered. "Ground team? Sounds like more than a few TSA agents." Daniels didn't respond. He already knew. The Airbus dipped lower, flaps extending. The passengers clutched armrests as the wheels screeched against asphalt. A chorus of relieved exhales filled the cabin relief that didn't last, because immediately they saw them. Through the windows, black SUVs and armored vehicles ringed the tarmac, lights flashing but sirens silent. Uniformed figures clustered. Near the jet bridge, shadows against floodlights. A line of vehicles paced alongside as the Airbus taxied slowly, like prison guards waiting for a transfer. Murmurs swelled into frantic questions. What is happening? Is this a hijacking? Why are there soldiers out there? The captain's voice again. Remain seated. For your safety, do not stand until instructed. The businessman at Amelia's side leaned toward her, whispering urgently. This isn't normal. Do you know something? Her lips parted, but no words came. She couldn't admit it, not to him, not to anyone. The plane came to a halt, brakes. Sighing, the cabin filled with the mechanical whir of engines winding down. Then, silence. No seatbelt chime. No rustle of passengers grabbing bags. Just silence. Amelia's phone buzzed. Her pulse spiked as she snatched it up. This is it. Stay calm. Follow instructions. The forward door creaked open. Sunlight spilled inside, but no one moved. Every passenger craned to see. 2 men entered first, tall and sharp in dark suits, earpieces coiled at their necks. Their eyes swept the cabin with practiced precision. Behind them, 2 Air Force officers followed, crisp uniforms glinting with insignia. The lead agent spoke, voice deep, deliberate. Remain seated. We are here for 1 passenger only. A collective. GASP rippled through the plane. Dozens of heads swiveled toward each other, searching for the unlucky target. Amelia froze. Her breath caught. She knew before he even said it. Passenger Amelia Falcon, seat 13F. Please remain where you are. Every eye snapped toward her. Row. The businessman jerked back in shock. You? He hissed. Amelia's face burned as the cabin filled with murmurs. Her? Who is she? What did she do? Her phone vibrated again. She glanced down. Do not resist. This is protection. Her. Hands shook as she placed the phone in her bag. The agents moved down the aisle, purposeful, unsmiling. She wanted to disappear, sink into the floor, deny her own name. The woman in front twisted around, eyes wide. Are you a criminal? Amelia's throat tightened. She couldn't speak. The lead agent stopped at her row. His gaze locked on her, unflinching. "Miss Falcon, please come with us." The businessman muttered, "Unbelievable," and turned away, though he couldn't hide his curiosity. Amelia's legs felt heavy as she rose. The cabin pressed in around her, a cage of judgmental stares. Her steps were unsteady as she followed the agents up the aisle, past rows of whispered speculation. At the doorway, sunlight blinded her for a moment. The roar of engines, the bark of radios, the snap of boots against pavement all slammed into her senses. On the tarmac, the world was a military tableau. Black SUVs idled, doors open. Airmen stood at attention. One vehicle bore the crest of the Department of Defense. She was ushered down the stairs, the heat of the asphalt rising around her. The Raptors still circled above, guardians in the sky. Daniels watched from his cockpit as she emerged. Even at this distance, he could sense her fear, her confusion. She looked so small against the machinery of the state. Perez's voice came. Quietly, "That's her. That's Falcon's sister." Daniels nodded slowly. "Now we see why command kept us blind." Amelia was guided toward a waiting SUV. Cameras flashed in the distance. Journalists had been tipped. Voices called out, but security held them back. She felt like prey caught in a spotlight. The lead agent leaned toward her, his words low but firm. "You're safe now, Miss Falcon. We'll explain everything once we're secure." Safe. The word echoed in her mind. Was this safety or captivity? Her phone buzzed one last time, before an agent took it from her hand. Trust only the call. Sign? Falcon Lives. She was pushed gently into the SUV. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed her, muffling the chaos outside. As the convoy pulled away, escorted by flashing lights, Amelia pressed her forehead to the window. In the sky, the F-22 peeled off, banking back toward the horizon. Her brother's shadow loomed larger than ever. And Amelia Falcon realized her life would never again belong only to her. The SUV smelled of leather and cold air conditioning, though the heat outside shimmered on the tarmac. Amelia Falcon sat pressed against the window, her reflection pale and strained. The tinted glass blurred the world outside into streaks of flashing lights, police cruisers, and armed soldiers. She wanted to scream. She wanted to demand answers. But her voice felt locked somewhere deep in her chest. Two agents sat across from her, stone-faced in their dark suits. The one on her left was broad, bald, his eyes hidden behind black sunglasses. The one on her right, lean and sharp, held her confiscated phone in one gloved hand. Neither had spoken since closing the door. The convoy began to move, engines humming in unison. The sound was mechanical, military, suffocating. Amelia gripped her knees and forced herself to speak. "Where are you taking me?" The bald agent finally turned his head, his jaw tight. "Classified destination, Miss Falcon. You'll be briefed shortly." Her pulse spiked. "I didn't do anything." "You can't just drag me out of a plane like that." The lean agent interrupted, voice precise. "You weren't dragged. You were escorted. And you're here because your safety and potentially national security depend on it." "National security?" Her laugh was brittle, half hysterical. "I'm a marketing consultant. I go to yoga twice a week. What could I possibly have to do with national security?" Neither man answered. The convoy roared down the highway, lanes cleared by flashing police escorts. Amelia caught glimpses of stunned motorists on overpasses, phones raised to record. The unusual procession. She could imagine the captions already. "What's happening in D.C.?" The bald agent's phone buzzed. He pressed it to his ear, listening intently. A curt "copy that" ended the call. Then he spoke to Amelia, his tone professional but not unkind. "You're about to hear a lot of things you don't understand. Maybe things you don't want to understand. But everything will make sense soon. Just hold on. Her stomach twisted. She hugged her arms around herself, staring out the window, as the convoy veered off the interstate toward a wooded area. Minutes later, they descended into a secured compound, high fences, guard towers, rows of hangars. Amelia's chest tightened. This wasn't an office or a police station. It was a military installation. The convoy slowed. Gates clanged open. Soldiers saluted as the black SUVs rolled through. Amelia whispered to herself, "Daniel." "What did you drag me into?" The vehicle stopped near a squat, windowless building. The door opened. The bald agent gestured. "This way, Miss Falcon." Her legs felt unsteady, but she stepped out. The asphalt radiated heat, the air buzzing with the sound of distant jet engines. She was led inside, through steel doors that sealed shut behind them with heavy thuds. The interior was sterile white walls, fluorescent lights, the faint scent of disinfectant. She was ushered down a narrow hallway into a briefing room. A single table sat in the center, flanked by 2 chairs. Pitcher of water and a single folder rested on the table. "Sit," the lean agent instructed. Amelia obeyed. The room felt colder than outside, though sweat prickled her neck. She poured herself water, her hands trembling as she lifted the glass. Moments later, another door opened. A man entered, mid-50s, silver hair cropped short, uniform crisp, with stars gleaming on his shoulders. His presence filled the room. Instantly, Amelia recognized him from news broadcasts. General Mason Whitaker, commander of U.S. Air Combat Operations. Her breath caught. Why is someone like him here for me? He sat across from her, steepling his fingers. His eyes, sharp and calculating, studied her. "Ms. Falcon," he said evenly, "thank you for your cooperation." Her laugh was short and sharp. "Cooperation? I wasn't given much choice." Whitaker didn't flinch. "That's true. But there's a reason you're here, and it concerns your brother." The room seemed to shrink. Her throat went dry. "Daniel?" she whispered. Whitaker nodded. "Daniel Falconer. Call sign Falcon. You know him as your brother. We know him as one of the most decorated and most complicated pilots we've ever had." Her pulse thundered in her ears. He's dead." The general's eyes hardened. "Is he?" Amelia blinked, stunned. The words sliced through her like a blade. "What do you mean? Is he?" "I buried him." There was a flag, a ceremony. Whitaker opened the folder. He slid a photograph across the table. It showed Daniel, helmet under his arm, smiling faintly beside an F-22. The date stamped on the corner was 3 months after his supposed death. Amelia recoiled, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible." Whitaker's voice lowered, deliberate. "Your brother's official record ends in Afghanistan 2 years ago. What the public doesn't know is that Daniel volunteered for a covert program afterward. A program so classified it doesn't legally exist. He became part of an operation we codenamed Sky Ghost." Her lips trembled. What does that mean?" "It means," Whitaker said, "that your brother was operating in airspace where even we couldn't admit we had assets. He intercepted threats before they reached headlines. He neutralized dangers before they reached cities. And he vanished whenever his mission was complete. To most of the world, including you, he was dead. To us, he was a ghost in the sky." Tears burned her eyes. She had lived 2 years grieving him, burying him, remembering him. And now this? "But why me?" she asked hoarsely. "Why am I here? I don't know anything." Whitaker slid another paper across the table. This one was a printout of the text messages she had received on the plane. Her blood turned to ice. "We traced the source," Whitaker said. Encrypted, military grade. Whoever sent these knew the internal call signs for Skyghost. Only a handful of people have that access. And the fact that they reached you suggests one thing. He leaned closer, eyes sharp as glass. Your brother isn't dead, and he's trying to contact you. The words punched the air from her lungs. She shook her head violently. No, that's insane. If he's alive, why wouldn't he come to me himself? Why like this? Whitaker's expression softened slightly, though it remained grave. Because if he's alive, Miss Falcon, he's running. And if he's running, it's from people who want him silenced. That makes you a target too. Amelia buried her face in her hands. Her world spun. Daniel alive? Daniel hunted? She was suddenly the sister of a ghost soldier. The general's tone shifted. You're in danger, Miss Falcon. Those texts prove someone slipped information into civilian channels. Until we find out who and why, you'll remain under protection. Her voice cracked. Protection or imprisonment? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The door opened again. An aide stepped in, whispering something in Whitaker's ear. The general's jaw tightened. He rose abruptly. Stay here, he ordered. Do not leave this room. He strode out, leaving Amelia with the two silent agents. Her chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath. She stared again at the photo of her brother, alive months after his death. Her phone. She needed her phone. But it was gone, locked in the agent's possession. Then, as though the universe heard her thought, the lean agent's radio crackled. A garbled voice came through. Secure comms breached. Falcon signal repeating. Coordinates embedded. The agent stiffened. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. Falcon signal. She whispered to herself, Daniel. For the first time since boarding the plane that morning, hope sparked inside her fear. But she didn't yet know hope could be just as dangerous as the truth. The fluorescent hum of the briefing room's lights drilled into Amelia's skull. Time seemed frozen. Minutes stretched into hours as she sat with her hands clasped, staring at the photograph of her brother still lying on the table. Alive. Dead. Ghost. She no longer knew which was true. The agents hadn't spoken since General Whitaker left. They stood like statues near the door, eyes shielded behind their black lenses. Amelia thought she could hear her own heartbeat louder than their breathing. Finally, the silence broke. A muffled burst of static came from the lean agent's earpiece. He tilted his head, listening. His jaw twitched. Say again, he murmured into his sleeve. Amelia leaned forward. What? What is it? The agent ignored her. The bald one shot her a warning look. The lean agent finished his exchange, then addressed his partner in a clipped tone. They've confirmed triangulation. Source is airborne. 30 miles east. Airborne. Amelia's stomach clenched. Was it Daniel? Was it really him? She couldn't hold back anymore. You said it's a Falcon signal. You said my brother might be alive. If he's out there, why aren't you bringing me to him? The bald agent spoke, his voice gravelly, the first words he'd given her since the SUV. Because if he's out there, Miss Falcon, he might not be alone, and we don't know whose side he's on. The words struck like a slap. Whose side? He's a soldier. The lean agent shook his head. Soldiers don't go rogue with top-secret tech. Soldiers don't send encrypted pings into civilian air traffic. If that's really Falcon, he's not following orders. Amelia rose from her chair, trembling. No, you don't know him. Daniel would never turn against this country. If he's alive, then something bigger is happening, and you're keeping me in the dark because you think I'm just his sister. The bald agent's stare hardened. Because you are just his sister. And right now, you're leverage. The words froze her blood. Leverage? The lean agent shifted uncomfortably, as if his partner had said too much. But the bald one continued. Look, Miss Falcon, if Falcon is alive, if he's sending signals, he's sending them to you. That makes you bait, whether you like it or not. You're the only tether he's revealing. The only vulnerability. The truth hit Amelia like a freight train. She was nothing but a lure in a trap. Her knees nearly buckled. She dropped back into her chair, pressing a hand to her chest. You're using me, she whispered. You're using me to catch my own brother. Neither agent confirmed, neither denied. The door opened suddenly. General Whitaker swept back in, his expression carved from stone. We've located the source of the breach, he announced. An unregistered aircraft broadcasting fragments of Falcon's call sign on ghost frequencies. Ghost frequencies? Amelia asked, voice cracking. Whitaker glanced at her, then at his men. He seemed to debate how much to reveal. Finally, he spoke. During Sky Ghost operations, our pilots communicated through untraceable microbursts across abandoned civilian bands. Like whispers in white noise. Almost impossible to detect unless you know what you're looking for. Tonight, someone resurrected those channels, and they were calling for you. Amelia's skin prickled. So, it's him? Whitaker's gaze was unreadable. Possibly, or someone who wants you to believe it's him. The general motioned to the agents. Prep her for transfer. She's coming with us. Amelia shot up from her chair. No, you're not dragging me around like cargo. If Daniel's alive, I'm not sitting on the sidelines while you turn me into bait. Whitaker's voice boomed, firm but controlled. You don't have a choice, Miss Falcon. If you want answers, you'll follow protocol. Otherwise, you'll never know the truth. Her chest heaved. The unfairness of it, the suffocating control, pressed in on her until she could barely breathe. But beneath it all was something else to a flicker of resolve. If Daniel really was alive, then he was reaching out for her. Not them. Her. She would have to play along for now. The agents escorted her down a new corridor. This wing was darker, colder. The hum of generators and the distant whine of jet engines reverberated through the walls. At the end of the hall was a secured door marked "Com Operations." Inside, the room glowed with monitors and projection screens. Analysts in fatigues hunched over keyboards, data scrolling faster than Amelia could follow. On one central display, a jagged signal pulsed against a black background, an erratic heartbeat of sound. That's it, Whitaker said, pointing. The Falcon signal. Amelia stepped closer, mesmerized. The bursts of noise looked meaningless to her, but she felt it in her bones her brother was inside that chaos. A young technician spoke. General, we've decrypted fragments. Some of it's corrupted, but we pulled a word. Everyone in the room stilled. The technician adjusted his headset, his voice tight. The word is sister. Amelia's knees gave out. She gripped the console for balance, tears blurring her vision. It was him. It had to be him. Whitaker's jaw flexed. Scramble. An intercept team. Now. The room erupted into motion. Pilots rushed from the far side, their boots pounding against the metal floor. Radar screens flickered, coordinates locking into place. Amelia tried to steady her voice. If he's calling for me, let me talk to him. Please, just let me try. Whitaker shook his head. We don't patch civilians into ghost frequencies. The risk is too high. Risk to who? She snapped. To me or to the control? You have over this? The general's eyes narrowed. You don't understand what you're asking. She lifted her chin, defiance burning through her fear. Then make me understand. The lean agent shifted uneasily. Sir, if the target's specifically transmitting to her, shutting her out could backfire. Whitaker's glare silenced him, but the point hung in the air. The technician suddenly raised his voice. General New burst incoming. The screens pulsed again. This time, the noise sharpened into something more structured. Amidst the static, a distorted voice crackled through the speakers. It was broken, warping in and out, but Amelia's heart recognized it instantly. Amelia listened trust. No one. The signal cut, leaving dead air. The room was silent. Then chaos exploded. Officers shouted coordinates. Orders flew across the room. Jets scrambled outside. Amelia's chest burned with adrenaline. That was Daniel. It was Whitaker's. Expression was carved in stone, but his eyes betrayed unease. He turned to the agents. "Get her to the safe unit, now." "No," Amelia shouted, her voice raw. "He's alive. He just spoke to me. If you hide me away, I'll never reach him. He's running from something, and you're all too scared to admit it." Whitaker leaned close, his voice dropping. Low, so only she could hear. "Your brother isn't the man you think he is anymore. If you chase this ghost, Miss Falcon, you might not survive the truth." He straightened, barking orders again. The agents pulled Amelia back toward the door. She struggled, tears streaking her face. But inside, beneath the fear and the betrayal, a steel-hard determination took root. Daniel was alive. And no matter what side he was on, no matter who tried to use her as bait, she would find him. Even if it meant turning against the very people holding her now. The command center was a hive of chaos. Alarms pulsed, monitors flashed, and pilots scrambled jets into the sky above the secured compound. Amelia Falcon stood rooted near the console, gripping the edge as if holding herself upright was a battle of its own. Her brother's distorted voice echoed in her mind, still lingering from the ghost signal. "Trust no one." Whitaker's gaze cut through her. "We've traced the signal. He's attempting to rendezvous near restricted airspace over the Potomac. It's a tactical extraction. Impossible for civilians. For you to intervene, Miss Falcon, is suicidal." Her hands shook, but her resolve hardened. "Then let me be suicidal," she whispered. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I'm not letting him do this alone." The lean agent stepped closer. "You can't just go after him. You'll be shot down, captured, or worse. You're not cleared for. Clearances mean nothing if he's out there dying," she interrupted. Whitaker's lips pressed into a thin line. "Every option you take has consequences. You are our only leverage. If he falls into the wrong hands—" "I don't care," Amelia snapped. Her defiance startled even the agents. A technician adjusted a screen, zooming in on Daniel's last known coordinates. A tiny blip pulsed against the radar. It moved erratically, weaving in and out of restricted zones. Amelia's stomach twisted. She could almost feel him, almost hear his heartbeat in the static. Whitaker sighed. "You think you know your brother, but he isn't the man you left behind. Sky Ghost operations change people. We trained him to disappear, to operate beyond loyalty, even beyond family." Amelia's chest ached. The image of Daniel's smile flashed before her, the boy she grew up with, the man who promised he'd return. She refused to believe he had become a stranger. The blip on the screen blinked again closer. She felt a pull in her chest, instinctive, undeniable. "He's calling me." "General," she said, voice trembling yet firm. "I need a jet. I need someone I can trust. I have to go after him." Whitaker's jaw tightened. "There's no one you can trust. Not here, not in this room, not in the entire operation." Her mind raced. Trust no one. Not them, not him, not even myself. Her hands clenched into fists. "And I'll make my own choice." Before anyone could react, she reached for the emergency override panel next to the console. Whitaker shouted, but it was too late. Amelia hit the code she had memorized from the plane's text messages, the one embedded in Daniel's last signal. The screens flickered. Communications rerouted. A private channel opened. Static filled the speakers. Then clearer, stronger a voice. Amelia, it's me. I'm alive. But I'm trapped in the middle of something bigger than either of. U.S. imagined. Listen carefully. Don't follow the protocol. You can't trust Whitaker. The voice cut off, distorted again. Amelia's heart pounded. It's him. It really is him. Whitaker's face was a mask of fury. Step away from the console. Amelia ignored him, pressing a hand to her ear, straining to hear. Daniel, what do you mean? Who are they? What's happening? Another burst of static, then words. They never wanted me to live. I uncovered Falcon's real mission. Don't let them take you. You must leave now. Meet me at the old airstrip outside Alexandria. Midnight. Alone. Alone. Her chest tightened. Every instinct screamed against it. If I go alone, I might be captured. But if I wait, I lose him forever. Whitaker barked orders. Soldiers surged. Forward. Remove her. She's endangering operations. Amelia ducked behind the console. She grabbed a headset from the technician's desk, toggled the channel to full volume. I hear you, Daniel. I'm coming. I don't care what it takes. The general's voice cut through, cold and commanding. You'll jeopardize everything. Falcon is a liability if he touches you. Her teeth gritted. No, Falcon is my brother. The decision crystallized. Everything she had endured, the plane escort, the agents, the lies, the static whispers from her brother, culminated here. She would not be bait. She would be the one to act. With precision fueled by desperation, Amelia grabbed a spare tactical jacket from the supply rack, stuffed essentials into a bag, and ducked out of the room while the general and agents scrambled. Outside, the night air was crisp, heavy with the scent of pine and asphalt. Amelia sprinted across the compound, dodging patrols, ducking under floodlights. Her heart raced, adrenaline sharp and intoxicating. Every instinct told her she could fail, be caught, die, but she pressed on. At the edge of the secure zone, she reached a hangar. Inside, a small private jet waited, unmarked, engines humming softly. She had memorized its access code from Daniel's signals. Fingers trembling, she entered the code. The door hissed open. Inside, the cockpit was dark. She slid into the co-pilot's seat, fingers flying across switches, recalling everything. She had absorbed in briefings, simulations, and childhood memories of Daniel showing her how to fly small craft. A burst of static on the comms. Daniel's voice, fragmented but unmistakable. Amelia, hurry. Don't trust anyone. Coordinates uploaded. You'll need to improvise runway lights disabled. Her lips curled into a grim smile. Got it. I'm coming, Daniel. She fired up the engines. The jet roared to life, the vibrations shaking her bones. She took a deep breath, eyes scanning the dark horizon. Freedom and danger intertwined with every beat of her heart. Outside, F-22s streaked above, searching, scanning, unaware that the rogue passenger had taken flight. Amelia maneuvered the jet with all the skill and fear coursing through her, pushing her training, intuition, and adrenaline to their limits. Minutes later, the old airstrip outside Alexandria came into view. The night was quiet, almost eerily so. Amelia's hands gripped the controls. She touched down, skidding along the tarmac, her body tense with anticipation. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Her breath caught. Daniel, helmet off. Eyes sharp, face streaked with grime and sweat, but alive. Amelia jumped from the cockpit, running toward him. Daniel froze for a heartbeat, then pulled her into a tight embrace. "Amelia, you shouldn't have come," he whispered, voice hoarse. She pressed back. "I couldn't let you do this alone. Not after everything." He pulled back slightly, scanning the horizon. "It's worse than I thought. Whitaker, they're not just after me. They want everything Falcon represents. You could be in danger too." Amelia's eyes narrowed. "Then let's face it together. No more secrets, no more running." For a moment, they stood in the moonlit tarmac, two siblings reunited. Amidst chaos. Above, the faint sound of engines signaled pursuit, but neither flinched. Daniel reached into his jacket, handing her a small encrypted tablet. "Everything you need to know is here. Who's behind the operation, what they plan, how to stop them. But once you see it, there's no turning back." Amelia took it, heart pounding. She didn't hesitate. "I'm ready." Daniel nodded. "Good, then we move. Together. Falcon style." From the dark edges of the airstrip, lights began to flicker, indicators that the military pursuit was closing in. Time was short. Danger was imminent. But for the first time since she boarded that fateful plane, Amelia felt clarity. She wasn't just a passenger. She wasn't bait. She was a Falcon, and together they would rewrite the rules. The siblings moved toward the shadows, every step synchronized, every heartbeat aligned. Above them, the night sky seemed endless, stretching like an ocean of possibilities. And somewhere in the distance, the pulse of ghost frequencies whispered the truth. The mission was far from over. But for Amelia and Daniel, the choice had been made. They would face it side by side, unbroken and unafraid. The wind picked up, carrying with it the roar of engines, the scent of freedom, and the promise of reckoning. Falcons never fall alone.